All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Grants Office Hours. On the Discord channel, it's listed as grants equals free money. For Owners Club calendar, I noticed it says free money equals grants. I think free money might attract more people than grants. So maybe that was a decision that they made, and I'm going to go with it. So yes, this is about getting free money through grants. So this is my second office hours. Last 2 weeks ago, I'm going to be holding these bi-weekly. And 2 weeks ago, we covered the types of grants that you can pursue. So really quickly, just to kind of recap that, we're looking at government grants, foundations, and corporations. So you can look at private grants, public grants, and then under those different categories, there are lots of different grants that you can go after. And again, it all depends on where you're located, depends on your target area. And one of the things that I did highlight last time was the way to get grants is that you are solving a problem and you're solving it for a specific target population. Okay, so that's how you are able to access grants. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I am going to ask you to please be mindful of having yourself on mute. I know sometimes we have to take phone calls or we have to address certain things, but when you start talking during the presentation, others can't hear. And so it does cause a little bit of disruption. So I'm going to ask you all to please mute yourself. And then once I'm done with the presentation, we can go ahead and unmute yourself and we can have open discussion. Okay. Thank you all for being here, and I'm going to get started. All right, so today's presentation, I'm going to be focusing on grants as catalysts for change. It isn't about writing grants for the sake of funding. It's about understanding how grants can become engines that bring life back to our communities. Every project we touch, whether it's housing, infrastructure, or revitalization, starts with a clear purpose, and grants are often the key that unlocks it. They're the spark that turns vision into motion. So in this session, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to go beyond the mechanics of grants and talk about the why. We'll look at how public and private dollars come together to create real change. And I'll walk you through how we apply this through MOXIE Moves, which is my business with Ann McNamara. I'll talk about a little bit about our design, fund, and deliver model. I'll also share real examples from Rockford and Palatka so you can see how this is all playing out in real life. And at the end, I'll open it up for discussion. And then, that way we can, as an open forum, maybe we can come up with bigger and better ideas. But some of the best ideas usually come from conversation. So here's the big idea. Grants aren't charity, they're strategy. They help investors feel safer about stepping into projects that might otherwise be too risky. And they show cities that we're serious about creating long-term value. When public funding aligns with cities' vision, it doesn't just fix one building, it actually ignites a ripple effect. It creates housing, it creates jobs, small businesses, tourism, all of it. So an example I have is in Madison, Wisconsin, 1.28 million in facade grants spurred 2.5 million in private investments, which was nearly a 2x leverage. So Madison's facade improvement grant program doesn't just beautify, it uplifts property values, retailer confidence, foot traffic, and the overall marketability of adjacent blocks. Now, imagine doing this with mixed-use housing, transitional units, downtown anchors, and city partnerships. That's exactly what we're building at MOXIE Moves. This is what drives everything we do. Our mission is simple, but it's powerful: to design, fund, and deliver projects that bring life to America's communities. And our vision is to prove that real estate can be a force of good. Grants allow us to bridge public needs with private capital, to test models that can be replicated in other towns, and to measure our success not just in profit, but in lives changed. That's the heart of impact investing. It's both purpose and performance. Grants are often the missing piece that connects vision to implementation. They activate spaces that have sat empty for years. They pay for the infrastructure, the water lines, the sidewalks, and broadband that make private development possible. They help fund housing programs, workforce training, and small business support. And most importantly, every grant tells a story of resilience, a community deciding that it's not done yet, that it's ready to rebuild itself from the inside out. When grant dollars hit a community, they do more than fund a single project. They move the local economy. They create jobs during construction. They attract matching funds from banks and investors. They raise property values that feed back into the city budgets. They support sustainability through things like revolving loan funds or tax capture programs, so the dollars keep circulating locally. And even more beautiful, as communities rebuild, they retain youth and local talent. They start attracting new residents, new talent, and actually new hope for the community. That's what we mean when we say real estate as a force for good. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the community that I live in. In Rockford, we're working with local leaders and a new kind of transitional housing, one that is designed specifically for families fleeing domestic violence. Too often, survivors are faced with heartbreaking voices and choices. Either stay in a dangerous home or become unhoused. We're changing that by creating purpose-built, safe, and supportive spaces. One of the things that the mayor in our city did was he created a family peace center. This center is a one-stop shop for agencies who are providing services to victims and survivors of domestic violence. So they don't have to go from agency to agency to agency across town. He set up this space so that they could come here, have a safe space where they can talk to counselors, where they can talk to all the services that can provide some type of assistance to them. But the one thing that they found that they were missing was that housing piece. So a victim or survivor, they can leave the situation, but once they leave, where do they go? They can get the services that they need, but they need housing. And if they don't have a safe space to go to, they usually return to the environment that they came from. So this project is a perfect example of how grants can truly catalyze revitalization. The funding stack includes city, state, and federal sources like HOME-ARP, CDBG, ESG, and VOCA. These are all grants combined with private capital. When public funds step in first, it reduces risk for private investors, which makes it possible to design trauma-informed units that are still affordable. It's where impact and return meet. So through the MOXIE model, design, fund, deliver, and integrate, we look at the full picture. Design. We start with site selection and community input to make sure the project meets real needs. Fund. We layer different funding sources, public, private, and philanthropic to close any gaps. And deliver. We build or rehab the spaces to high standards. And then integrate. And finally, we connect the project to the city's broader redevelopment so the neighborhood grows with it. So what is the outcome? It's powerful. Families in crisis get safe, dignified homes. They gain a bridge from emergency shelter to long-term stability. And the city itself becomes stronger with safer communities and more resilient local economy. So as I mentioned, the Rockford example, in the design, we are identifying those community gaps and we're creating the mixed use concept. So in this case, it was the families fleeing domestic violence. The city told us what their need was. And so then we came in and said, okay, here's what we're going to design and here's what we're going to provide. In conversations with the city and the Family Peace Center, which would be the operator for this housing, we have talked about what they would like to see. Okay. Now the funding, the city said, we have this funding available to you. And we also have another partner where we're looking at the capital raising piece. Now the city has come back and said, guess what? We have 2 additional funding sources for you that you can apply for. These are all grants, but they know that they want to designate these funds to transitional housing. So they have said to us, you are pretty much the only recipients to these grants. Once you are ready to apply for them, they are available to you. So we're kind of right now we're working on all the foundation pieces, bringing all the pieces to the table, bringing everybody we need here. Everything is getting prepped so that when they tell us it's now time to apply for the grants, I can go ahead and apply for those grants and I will secure them for the specific project. And then deliver. We move on to building and managing the assets so that we can have sustained impact. All right. Another example that I have is in Palatka, Florida, and is doing work in revitalizing an entire downtown area. And we recently had a conversation with a state entity where we're trying to determine how we leverage state funds to be able to put towards this town revitalization. Our thought was working in one way, but after having that conversation, they have guided us in another direction and said, well, we're not going to fund this. However, we are looking to fund this. So if you provide this, this, and this, we will go ahead and consider you for the funding that we have available. So this comes down to the, again, finding out exactly what their needs are, what's the problem, what their needs are, and then what the population is that they're trying to serve. And then we pivot and then provide exactly what they're asking for so that we can secure the funding that they are willing to give for population and for the problem looking to be solved. So key takeaways that I have for you on this is grants equal leverage. It's not charity. Okay, they fuel economic mobility and community pride. The right grant plus the right partner equals exponential impact. And MOXIE moves exist to make that alignment possible. So this is what Ann and I are working on. If you've attended any of the small town revitalization meetings, you'll hear a lot more about how we're focusing on the revitalization, but this is the piece that we talk very little about, and it's how we are bringing these grant funds in to leverage what we are trying to get accomplished. So I'm going to open it up for discussion and Q&A. And one of the things that I do want to comment is that for the next session, I am going to be identifying on needs in your community. I also want to encourage you to connect with us and others who are interested in doing the same thing in the Owners Club Discord. Go to grants equals free money, and then also go to town revitalization. So in those two forums, we're going to be talking a lot about how to leverage grant funding and how we're pursuing different grant types in order to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish through our work in MOXIE Moves. All right. So I am going to open it up now to discussion and questions. Hi, everyone. Wow, a lot more people on here since I started. All right. I am opening it up for discussion. I'll check the chat and see if there are any questions in here. And then in the meantime, if anybody wants to pop in here and have any questions, I'm all ears. See, good morning. All right, I don't see any questions. Welcome, everyone.
I have a question, Luz.
Hi.
Hi there. Once we identify what grants may be available and what their mission is for the grant, do you have any suggestions on agencies that might help us write those, or apply for them? Should we use AI? Like, I'm clueless on that front.
Yeah, I would definitely look for an experienced grant writer. I would not try and do it. Well, okay, it depends on the grant. Let's just put it that way. Some grants are very small and simple, and so you actually could do it yourself. Let's say a foundation grant or a corporation grant. Sometimes it's because you already have a relationship with them and they say to you, okay, here, go ahead and apply for these funds. Very simple, very quick. You need to be able to know how to write. I do recommend that you have to be a good writer. You have to be able to correctly answer what they're asking for. So if they're saying, provide us what your capacity is for your organization, then you have to be very clear and provide, okay, here's the capacity that we have. What is your need statement? Why do you need the money? And you have to be able to very clearly articulate what you need. If you don't feel that you're capable of doing that or want to do that work, then you find somebody else who can do it. So there are many grant writers out there. I have grant writing services. And I have lots of friends who do grant writing. So if I'm at a point where I'm not able to write the grant myself, I have people that I can hire to do it for me. So there are grant writers available. The other thing I would say is if you are comfortable with pulling up research and statistics and data, then you could write the grant yourself. Okay.
Does your QR code have your consulting business in there too?
It has my blank card and it can take you to a consultation link. So yeah.
Great.
Oh, great. Anne is here. Hi, Anne.
Hey, guys.
This is my partner in crime, and she and I are doing the work that I was referencing during the presentation. And so a lot of this does have to do with securing grant funding and grant funds or funds through the state, grants through the city, so in order for us to move forward and get some of these projects done. Hi, Henry. I requested the grant information for the property in North Carolina. I haven't seen anything yet. Okay, great. I had asked Henry. Henry was asking about a property that he's looking to hopefully purchase, and the person who owns the property had already submitted for a grant application for grant funding, but he wants to sell before he secures the funding. So I told him to find out if you could get any information on the specific grant, and then we could talk about it here. So if you can get it whenever you get it, Henry, shoot it out to me or bring it to the next office hours. Hopefully we can unpack that a little bit and see what's in there. Adriana, how can grants help us build credibility with future partners, lenders, or city officials? So usually when you start out with securing grants, it's good. When you get a grant, a lot of it has to do with you demonstrating to these funders that you have credibility already, that you have experience, or you already have something that you've put into work. You have to demonstrate to them that you're capable of executing on the grant application. So if you secure grant funds, that's a demonstration to the partners that you're trying to secure that you have credibility, that you are able to execute on a plan, that you're able to put those funds to work. So it's kind of a catch-22. But you don't always have to go, you don't always have to secure funds before you develop those relationships with the city. Part of it is the work that you're already doing. So if you're already in the world of developing, or you are rehabbing, or you're providing housing for underserved populations, already you have the experience. So you take that to the city or the officials or whoever you want to work with, the partners that you're trying to secure. You let them know what experience you already have. Now all you're trying to do is do it for them, and they could potentially have funding that can support you in that. That's kind of where that goes. So I already have experience grant funding and securing grants through the organization I used to work with in the nonprofit world and in education. So that's a lot of the work I've done. However, the city approached me not specifically for that, but because what they saw that I was doing in the real estate world. They know I'm involved in affordable housing. They know I have experience with domestic violence. So they put those two together. But then they saw that I was investing in real estate. They saw me going to the conferences to squat up, and they reached out to me and said, "Hey, can we have coffee?" When I sat down with them, they said, "Okay, what would you do if we gave you $1 million? How many units can you give us, and by when?" And this is for affordable, for transitional housing for families fleeing domestic violence. I didn't pursue the grant. They saw what I was doing. And again, this kind of goes to Pace's the value of putting what you're doing on social media. They reached out to me when they saw what was happening at Squad Up. It was all after Squad Up. I actually was still at Squad Up when I got the message from the city administration. So you put two and two together. You're putting the information out there of what you're doing, and that is how you're getting their attention. So I didn't have to go, yes, I've been involved with the city here for other things. They know that I'm involved in affordable housing. So they started to put the dots together. Okay. Now, Anne's an example. She's working in her downtown area. She's revitalizing a town, and she has been reaching out to her officials. Now her building is much farther along, and now she's catching the attention of a lot of other people, and they're looking at what she's doing. Yeah, I know it's amazing, and the building looks amazing. And I don't know if you're following her on her socials. Go follow her socials. Look at what she's doing with this building. But where she started and where she is at now, that is driving attention to what's happening here. There are other properties that we're looking to work on in that same block, in that same area, but that's garnering attention. And what she is doing there is now calling others to, wow, there's something happening here. I want to be a part of this. This is going to bring not just public, but private partnerships to this area. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the attention with the experience that you have. Did she have grant funding at the beginning? No, I know she did secure a grant fund from the city. It was a city, and I think it was, yeah, city. She secured grant funding from the city. And this is going to open doors for more grant funding. Okay. So it starts with one little thing, and then it's just going to exponentially grow. Okay. Um, Henry, you will have access to the grant in the fall, in the vault for Owners Club. My understanding is these are not being made publicly, being put out there publicly. I am putting them on my YouTube until I switch that. I might make some of these available for some time, and then I'm going to change it and make it a paid prescription. So offer a subscription. So offering to Owners Club will always be available, but beyond that, it will become a paid subscription. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Let's see. So I want to open this up to make sure that everybody knows this is an open forum for us to talk about things. If there are some things that you're trying to accomplish or some ideas that you have, you're not exactly sure how to do it, please feel free to bring it up here. We'll talk about it here. I want this to be an opportunity for you to ask your questions, go out there and do the thing. If you, I want this to be an opportunity for you to get free information and consulting here. Okay. This is what this forum should be. So don't sit on the sidelines and wonder, wait for somebody to ask the question. Please ask the question here. I want to help you get your projects going. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, Luz. We had talked about this in the board meeting. So I work with Section 8, and my Mount Everest is to help the people that I have inside of the houses to move them out of the situation that they are in, and for them to, be able to move out of Section 8. The reason I'm trying to do this because I have tenants that have been there for 15 years and they're still in the same situation as day one. And I'm trying to do something. My goal was to buy businesses that will somehow help them, either by teaching them or giving them tools to be able to move along, or because for me it's perfect that they stay 15 years, but it really it doesn't help the community, it doesn't help those families, and I really want to help the families. You have mentioned maybe to partner with nonprofits, um, or how can we do that if that's a topic that we can discuss here?
Absolutely. So when I was with the nonprofit, we had what we called a holistic approach to working with families. And that means that a family that comes to us for whatever service we have available, we would do an intake assessment. During that process, we would identify any other services that they might need. What other problems are they having? What other issues do they need assistance with? And then within the agency, we would refer them within the agency to other programs and services. So that ensured that this family was getting all the services needed. And if there was something that we couldn't provide in-house, we would connect them with agencies outside of our organization and find another nonprofit that was providing a service that could help them on their journey to self-sufficiency, because our goal was always self-sufficiency. And one of the things that we always struggled with was finding housing. And I know it's still an issue because I now, as a landlord and a property owner, I let them know, hey, I have a property opening up, or I have 2 properties available right now, or they're going to be available at the end of the month. And so then they have access to housing to place families that they're working with. But the biggest issue that all these nonprofits face is if they don't provide housing services, they need housing. So what can you do? You find an agency that is providing services, or maybe it's multiple agencies. In this case, our agency provided a lot of services already in-house. So maybe that would be an ideal one for you to pursue, is find an agency that is holistic and provides lots of services to the families that they're servicing. And then you as a landlord can then refer these families to the agency. Maybe you create a program together. Maybe you partner with them on a program that they can create, which again is an excellent way for you to work with them and them to apply for a grant that can provide that service. So what would that look like? The agency can find a grant that is not only providing assistance through whatever programs that that they offer within house, but also has an extension to housing. And then you as the landlord can be the person who it has that housing. But then it's kind of like a loop. They give clients to you who they're serving, or you have tenants that move into you that you then refer to them for their services. And then in that, you create a component where the services that they're receiving is to help them become self-sufficient. Maybe it provides some kind of workforce skill development. Maybe it provides some kind of career extension, or whatever, that can be created. That's the beauty of grants, is that depending on what they want to fund, whoever's writing the grant can create whatever they want. It's about, this is what we want to offer, this is what I envision for this program or service, and then you work on that together. Okay, but I definitely recommend finding a nonprofit or several nonprofits that you can work with. And then they now have the extension of the housing, which is the biggest point that agencies cannot secure. If they're not working in housing already, they struggle with finding affordable housing. They struggle with finding landlords willing to take families who have low credit scores, who come from the child welfare system, who come from poverty. That's a struggle. So you're a unique landlord. You're a special landlord, willing to provide that housing for them. Okay, so find a nonprofit to work with.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Norman, you have a question. Do I need to be a nonprofit to qualify, or can I structure a for-profit entity with a social impact arm or fiscal sponsor to receive grants? No, you do not have to be a nonprofit. And actually, as a business owner in running a portfolio, I don't want to be a nonprofit. I want to partner with nonprofits because when I worked in the nonprofit or I ran the nonprofit, I ran it as a business. It can be a nonprofit, but it's still a business. And that's one of the things that really differentiated my nonprofit from other nonprofits. It's that many of the nonprofits are run with the heart and with passion, which you need that. You absolutely need that. But you can't run it with only passion and heart because you have to make the money to pay for your staff. You have to make the money to keep the lights on, and you have to make the money to pay for the programs and services that you're offering. So when I stepped into the nonprofit that I ran it as a business. And then I looked at the services that we could provide. And if I had to eliminate services or I had to reduce the services based on the funding that I was getting, I did that. I made business decisions. So do you want to be a business owner who has to make business decisions in a nonprofit and you're taking away services or you're reducing programs because you didn't secure the grant funding? Or do you want to stay in your lane and be the business owner, partner with the nonprofit, provide your piece, your end, which is the housing, partner with them, and then they can continue to secure the funding. They can run the business, the operations of the business. They can do the fundraising that they need. Because when you are running a nonprofit, the grants can't fund everything. The operations have to be supported with additional funding. And where do you get that additional funding? That's where the philanthropists come in. That's where the charity comes in. That's where the fundraising comes in. And I don't want to do fundraising anymore. Okay. I don't want to focus on that. I want to focus on building my business, and I want to make it available to the nonprofit so they can place their tenants in my property. Okay. Let's see. Yes, it can be super creative. So one of the things that I loved about the world that I lived in before in the nonprofit and writing the grants was that I could create. I was very creative because I would look and see what grant was available, and then I would see what the grant wanted to fund. And if the grant wanted to provide sustainable employment for families leaving, let's say Section 8, then I could say, yes, I can provide that. What am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to create a workforce program. I'm going to partner with such and such agency or community college. We're going to provide this skill set, and then we're going to educate them for 12 weeks. We're going to provide them how to do front-end web development and back-end web development, and we're going to make sure they get their certifications. And then we're going to help them get an internship. And I'm going to work with such foundation. I'm going to get funding for that from that foundation so we can pay for their internships. And so this is me being able to create what I want to provide. And then let's place them with housing. And then so that's the creative part. You create what you want as long as you're meeting the needs of the grant funder and what they want to give you money for. Okay. So that's exactly the piece of I get to be super creative, and I get to get money from the government or from the state or from this entity so that I can put it to work with the populations I want to serve. And I can still get money on the back end, being a business owner. Okay. Rachel, you have a question?
I was actually going to say another thing just from my own experience in the nonprofit space that we don't have to worry about that's really nice. I used to get hemmed up a lot with funding and making sure that it wasn't going to payroll. And you only need like a certain period, like you only want a certain percentage of the money that you're getting because the board of directors is reviewing that. Now, that doesn't mean everyone here has a board of directors, but if everyone's looking to scale to get to that point, recognize as you're paying yourself in this, that is, and Luz, do you remember it's something like it's like 10% or something of the money?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you?
It depends. So indirect costs, you're referring to indirect costs. So anything that is for the operations or is not a direct expense of the grant of the program or service you're providing is considered an indirect expense. What's a direct expense? It could be an employee who is providing case management directly to the clients that you're working with. That would be a direct expense. If that person is only spending 25% of their time working with the clients and 75% of the time working, let's say, in operations, HR, then only 25% can be considered for direct. And that means that you can only charge 25% of that person to the grant. The indirect portion is the operations, anything that falls under operations that is not direct or staff that is not direct. you can allocate 10% of that to the grant. And then some states will allow you to do, you can negotiate the indirect cost rate, which means you can actually get more for it, but that's more complicated. So I'm not going to get into that. But that's a negotiation piece. But yes, exactly. 10% is the usual, the minimus that you can charge out for indirect.
My biggest thing is I wanted to make sure is as we're working towards paying ourselves, that we're not paying ourselves with these grants for things that will get our grants taken away from us later.
Yes, thank you for that, Rachel. That's really important to highlight. And that's why I say that if you want to open a nonprofit, that's wonderful. Open a nonprofit if that's really what you want to do, but you cannot pay for your whole nonprofit with grants. Okay, that is a no-no. That's why I say you still have to do the fundraising. You still have to find the charitable or the philanthropist who's going to donate to your organization to cover all the extra, the above 10%. So 10% can be pulled out of the grants to cover that that indirect, but you still have to cover that 90% from somewhere. It has to come from somewhere. So either you're producing something. One perfect example of that would be the Goodwill. Goodwill receives donations. They have stores. They have retail stores. They sell their products. They sell those products that are donated to them. And that money goes to support their indirect expenses, their operations, plus any services or programs that they are providing to the community. Okay. So you would have to set it up that way. Okay. Let's see. Any other questions? All right, how do we best position a project for transitional housing populations to qualify for funding? Okay. I guess, Adriana, do you mind if I pull you up? I would like to ask more questions so I can actually answer the question correctly. Because I don't know if you're already in the process of providing transitional housing or if this is something you want to go into and you're just starting out.
Hey, thank you. So yeah, so Noman and Marcy, Kevin, March, and I are looking into doing one here in Texas. And so we're still trying to learn and figure out how to best do this to qualify for grant funding.
Okay. Is there a specific area that you are looking to do this? Well, first, let me start with, yes, is there a specific area?
Probably like Abilene, maybe, or somewhere here in Texas for sure. I don't know
Okay.
where.
Do you know that there is a problem there and that it's needed?
No, we have not
Okay.
done.
I would start there. First, find out where that is a problem, where there's a need. And then you need to find out if there is a commitment from the community or the city for this type of housing that you want to provide. Okay. Because you want to start there. If you're going to just say, I want to provide this, but there's no need, now you're building something you're probably not going to be able to put to use. So going back to my example with the city that I'm in, the problem exists. There is a need for transitional housing. The city knows that there's a need for transitional housing, and it is a project that the city is looking to fund and provide. So right there, I'm covering all three. And so here it's an example of something that I've been trying to secure for many, many years when I was in the nonprofit was to find transitional housing for families fleeing domestic violence. It's something I've been working on for years and years and years. So somebody who is now working at the city, who didn't used to work there before, worked in another side of housing, knew that I had gone to her looking for funding for transitional housing. Okay. Years later, now she's at the city, and now this is a passion project of the mayor. She's put the two things together, and now she says, I know exactly who to go to, who has a passion for working with providing housing for families fleeing domestic violence. And now she's also working in the world of real estate investing. So put the two pieces together. That's their passion project. So what I would challenge you to do, your team, is find out where is there a problem of domestic violence and there's a need for transitional housing. Domestic violence is everywhere, okay? It is everywhere. But what you need to look for is where in Texas is this, if you're focused on any part of Texas, what community has stated that this is a project that they want to work on, that they are looking to eradicate, that they are passionate about providing services and that they are passionate about reducing this problem in their community. And that is a community that you're probably going to find not only the funding, grants, and support behind what you want to offer. Okay, does that help, Adriana?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Luz. Yeah.
Rachel? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry, I just like come in late and I'm like, oh no, I'm glad I came because there's stuff I can help with this. Adriana, there's something similar going on in Charlotte with regard to domestic violence shelters for men. Currently, Charlotte has 8 domestic violence shelters for women that can bring children and none for males. So there's currently a small group of people that are working towards doing just that because, again, I think we all naturally think about because we see more women leave, but there is a very interesting subsection of people. And when you find those nonprofits and organizations that are interested in solving the problem, you can run into those types of opportunities. So I would encourage you too, if there's one population, to look at the inverse of whoever that is to see if you can solve 2 birds with 1 stone.
Love it. Thank you, Rachel.
Of course.
Whoops. Thank you, Rachel. Johnny?
Hey, Luz. Johnny out of Houston here. I was at your table at Squat Up. I mean, not Squat Up. At the Squat Up Summit. You gave me an acronym. I wrote it down, or actually, I think I looked it up on my phone for new builds. And then I think I accidentally got out of the, like, I erased it. So, I don't know what the acronym is. Do you have it on the top of your mind?
Let me think. For new builds.
Yeah, it was like
You
a new
mean
construction. New
from the
construction build.
city?
Yeah.
Funding from the city?
Yeah.
All right. So CDBG, could that have been it?
I
It may
think
not
so.
necessarily be for new builds, but CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant.
Yeah.
And this is funding that is given to all cities. And the city makes a decision on how they're going to spend their CDBG funds. They do a plan. Locally, I know that this is something that actually gets put out to the community. They say, this is what our focus is going to be on for the next 3 to 5 years. We want to, let me step back a little bit. So the city will look at what their priorities are within the city and how they want to develop their community, how they want to impact economic development. And a lot of it has to do with where they build or where they develop within their community. So maybe there's an area that we know that we have a huge problem with violence. Okay, maybe it's an insecure neighborhood, and the city decides that we're going to put money into this neighborhood, and we are going to put that into our plan. As we're going to put money into it, what are we going to do? We're going to update the streets. We're going to do construction in the area. We're going to help maybe provide grants to rehab properties, maybe the facades of businesses. So they put a plan together that is going to help them move towards this economic development and the changing of their community. Okay, so these funds that they receive, they get to designate how they're going to put them to work. Okay, this is why it's so important for you to work with your cities. If you want to do something in that city or in that town, you start working on building that relationship with them, because they know exactly what they want to put their funding towards, where they want to develop, where they want to create impact. Okay, so when I say CDBG, that's what I'm referring to. You want to see what they are offering, what their plan is, and where they are going to be investing those dollars. And where they invest those dollars is usually where they choose to invest other funding that they get. So they can receive additional funding from the state, additional funding from the federal government. And when they receive those funds, I can assure you that always they're going to be putting them towards their plan, their plan for the community. Okay.
Gotcha.
So pull up that plan for the city, find out what their areas are that they're interested in revitalizing, that they're interested in turning around, where they want to put all their effort. And then if you can fill those gaps, then you are somebody that they're going to want to work with.
Okay. Cool. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with any of this, but I think there's been like studies here recently that I guess the city of Houston is like the city with the most population, or the most populated people in poverty right now at the moment. So I accidentally got into co-living, and I just wanted to see if I could like rinse and repeat the process with actually intentionally try to to have co-living property. So I don't know. Do you think? I guess it's something that I would have to look up to see if that's on their list. I don't know, like if they would have provide housing for people with new build.
So can I jump in here on something, because
Of
this is
course.
relevant to something that happened with Luz and I on a call the other day. Is so firstly, the big principle on grants is it's the city or the agency that funding body, whatever, who's trying to buy outputs. So they do the research and then they come up with a conclusion. So just being like, this is crazy talk, but let's say they said, we actually think that the best solution for, the level of poverty we have now is high-rise building in the west side of the city. There's no point trying to argue with them saying, let's do co-living in downtown. Now, they're never that precise, but I'm just what you're trying to do, and I've worked in cities before where the cities are in denial about things. So again, there's no point even arguing with them. Like one city was appalling at education, but you couldn't even reference that the elementary education was so bad. That's why families were fleeing at a certain secondary education. They were fleeing when their kids were 11 because they were in denial about that. So if you want grants, you kind of have to work with their view of the world.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So
that's
just see what's on there and then go off of that.
Yeah. And so we did a pitch, myself and Lucy, the other day, and we said, we want it. So we worked up a building. The only thing that would make it viable if we put 20 co-living units, 20 co-living bedrooms in it. They're like, no, we won't fund that. Why not? Because we have had to take over too many rent by the rooms. We're like, yeah, but it's not that sort of, it's not the same thing. They don't care. Does not compute. Computer says no. But what they did say is if there were efficiencies, then they would fund it. So we're like, big deal, put another 5 square foot on, put a kitchenette. We will still do the shared kitchen. We're going to do this whole sort of loft living vibe with co-working, maybe a cinema room, that kind of stuff. We're trying to go away from the traditional poverty sector model. So big deal, we'll shove in a kitchenette, tick, tick, tick. Now we get funding. And so that makes a project viable. So again, what I learned from being like a community activist I hear it from the ground, I know what's really going on. There's no point arguing with City Hall. Just do work in their reality and make your reality and their reality work for you.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. That's perfect. Perfect example. Ron?
Yeah, I think the Brand, a newbie here, got a question. First time being on this training. It sounds like work with the county, get their approval, get their needs, and then go from there. What I was looking to do is new construction, the six bedroom model that Jamil puts out, and then house foster care kids that have outgrown the foster care system. We have a local nonprofit that already has an issue with housing their independent living program and so I'm in the process of scheduling a meeting with them and seeing how great their need is. But I was just wondering if there's a basic pros and cons for working with a nonprofit in the area or opening up my own nonprofit, because I have the ability to do it with new construction with the 6-room model that Jamil puts out for co-living. And also I have a tiny home community in which the tiny homes, I'm assuming, could be used for something of this nature. And I also have mobile homes available for this type of project as well. So I'm looking for guidance on which avenue, any obvious pitfalls that a newbie like me would not know about.
So let's start with the population that you want to serve is an excellent population, because there actually is a lot of funding available for youth aging out of foster care. A lot. I've posted multiple times in my socials whenever I see funding that comes out. I'm like, oh, look at the millions of dollars being made available for youth aging out of foster care. And if you have a passion to have a nonprofit, go down that path. But if that's not your lane, that's not what you want to focus on, work with a nonprofit. There are plenty of nonprofits that are working with youth aging out of foster care, and plenty of them are looking for the housing. They're looking for housing. So if you already have a niche that you're working in and you're really good at it, provide that for them. You build the housing for them, and then they get the funding that they partner with you on, and then they put their participants in your housing. It's all you need. You need to be that housing provider for that nonprofit. So I wouldn't go into the nonprofit world because I want to fix the problem. What I would do is I would partner with that nonprofit so they can help, they can send me the participants to live in my property. I will provide them what they need. Jamil is not opening a nonprofit right now. Jamil is, what Rahima and Jamil did is they partnered with a nonprofit, and they received a huge federal grant where they are receiving all the funding to pay for these women returning from incarceration, and they are housing them in these in these houses in the co-living spaces. So that is one of the models that they are using, and the funding is not coming to Rahima and Jamil because they didn't apply for the grant directly. They partnered with this organization, and this organization was able to demonstrate that we not only do we have the participants that we're working with, but we have also the housing, the partner to provide the housing. So we have somewhere to place these women when they leave incarceration where they are going to be able to thrive, because we are providing them the services they need to stabilize in society, re-enter society, and then they also have housing that we will have available to them. So don't go into the not opening a nonprofit because this is what you want to provide. Find the right nonprofit to partner with. Okay.
Thank.
You're welcome. All right. Oh, Rachel.
I just wanted to offer a cheat code because I'm pretty sure that nonprofit he's working with is Dress for Success, correct? Is that right?
Yes, these guys are pretty established, and I've made a donation to them this past year with my fireworks stand, but they've got all their, they're a stable nonprofit that's been in the business or in operations for I don't know how many years, but well enough to be established in the area. And some of the conversations I had with them and making my donations to them is that, because they asked me about my tiny homes once, I approached them. I'm giving them a donation from the fireworks. They wanted to talk to me about the tiny homes. We haven't had that conversation yet, but they went out and purchased a home themselves, and they're filling that home with their guys. So, and I was told during that conversation that they have a waiting list and that people from all over the state are looking at them.
I would like to get you connected. So I'm super familiar with Dress for Success. They have a very large footprint here in Charlotte. And the reason I want to help you out is, so my husband, Mike Davis, who's also in, not the sub two car guy, there's another Michael Davis. But when he went through the leader development program at Truist, one of their partners was Dress for Success and teaching these women how to interview for jobs. And so they brought people from the LDP program at the bank, which is, again, like an incredible feeder system just from getting people who will be future leaders at the bank visibility on people who solve problems in the community. I'd love to get you and Michael on a conversation because he still works hand in hand with a woman named Melissa Early who coordinates those for the LDP. So if there's an opportunity for you, instead of, or to work with Dress for Success as they're teaching the women to interview, to inject what you're doing with the tiny homes as well. Because typically with the banks, there's also, I know we talked a little bit about this with Ann McNamara when we were in Phoenix, something called CRA funding, which is appropriations that the banks have to give to low to moderate income projects and that affect the local community. So if you can start speaking that language to the banks and to Dress for Success at the same time, now all of a sudden you're creating a partnership where you're much more embedded in it and have the opportunity to not just solve a problem, but make money while you're doing it. So if you can, I'll shoot my phone number just in here so you can reach out to me and I can connect you to Michael.
That'd be awesome. And what we're looking to do is the aged foster care kids. I'm assuming it's a similar process than exactly what you're talking about. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, I know Anthony Weekly is who handles it for Truist. So again, my familiarity is more in the local market of Charlotte, but there's small banks, and Truist has a footprint all the way from like Virginia down to Florida and edging into Texas. So what ends up happening is people think they can receive the CRA funding in infinitely, and you can't. There comes points where you get cut off from it from a bank, but there's ways that you can leverage it by making relationships with other people across the other banks that sit in that same role. So by having the conversation with someone like an Anthony Weekly will allow you to understand what the priorities are of the bank and what they're looking for. So that way, when you're applying for the CRA funding, you're able to sing to what they need, and that you're solving a problem that exists instead of like one that we create, which sometimes we do that.
Definitely want to learn the language before I have to speak it, right? And get familiar with it and go forward. I've got plans to meet with the county planner, a local investor-friendly banker. You mentioned Truist. My manager and repairman, his wife is elevated in the Truist locally banking system, but I would love to connect with your contacts as well. That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. There's also something in North Charleston. I sent it to Bertie the other day. There is an event that you might want to go to that's about affordable housing for women. It is called Hops and Housing. It's on October 27th from 6 to 8 in the Common House Ale Works. So that might be another place you need to go.
Yeah, I just want to throw something in here as well. Like Noman asked a really good question. Who can be the local partners in Dallas, Texas for affordable co-living housing service domestic violence victims? Aside from nonprofits that I collaborate with to strengthen my proposal, I mean, so this is the thing, and it's a couple of people have asked about, should I set up a nonprofit? A guy set one up years ago, and we ran it for 10 years. And you have to be really advanced to not go to prison running a not-for-profit. It gets so much scrutiny. We did it because we were very similar to Lou's. We were running an agency, and we were very, very savvy about these are for-profit costs, these are not-for-profit costs. But we subsidized the not-for-profit. We didn't try and get it to subsidize us because it was a different offer. But I would say you'd be half mad to try and set up a not-for-profit, number one. Number two, you then become competitors, a competitor to people you want to partner with, and that's more important than anything. So Noman, I misread your chat, and what I would do if you were looking for non-profit partners, I would go and start seeing them, and I'd start interviewing them in your head. I'm really judgmental about nonprofits because I've worked with some really disorganized people, and I don't want anything to do with them because they will hold up your grant, they won't deliver, you'll end up doing their services. So I would go and see them and see how they perform. Can they answer the phone? Do they have proper emails? Do they have a half decent staff base? Can somebody handle working with you? Otherwise, they're underfunded enough as it is without not even checking out who you're working with. But that way I bring the housing. So Noman, it's the same. It's going to be the same approach of you need to go out and interview people. Don't tell them you're interviewing them. Just go and visit them. Tell them what you are doing, what you need in a partner, and then make your choices. But the same as going in with a partnership in sub to an owners club, you have to don't tie yourself into anything you can't get out of till you can test. Don't buy the sizzle, test the substance, all those usual things if you want to have a successful partnership.
I would add a couple things to that. I would also say you're looking at Dallas, Texas, start connecting with key players in Dallas. Who is working in the field of domestic violence? Who is working on providing affordable housing for specific populations? Maybe the city is looking at doing something. Maybe there's a local foundation this is their passion project that they want to help in this area. Start connecting, building those relationships, start reaching out. So you're saying who else you could collaborate with? Foundations and corporations. Maybe there are some corporations that have their main offices are in Dallas. Those are the ones that you want to approach and see, are they providing any services within the community or funding for services in the community? Do they have a passion for, sorry, okay. Do they have a passion for helping and giving back in the community? Is this the particular group that they want to serve? Those are all things that you want to explore within your community. Go on LinkedIn, look and see what's being said in Dallas about housing, about domestic violence, about seniors, about the different target population. Again, I go back to the primary. What is the problem that needs to be solved, and for what population do they want to solve it for? And then that is going to guide you. It's going to lead you to who is going to provide you with the funding. Okay. Those are some of the key things. Also, as far as a nonprofit, for those who keep talking about, should I start a nonprofit? Most nonprofits fail within the first year or two. And if they are less than $1 million budget, they fail. Usually will fail. They will close down. They will not survive. Why? Because operations and expenses are a big chunk of operating any business. And if you are operating under $1 million, it's a struggle. So what I have done, and one of the things I did was mergers and acquisitions of other nonprofits that they were, one, not managing well, and two, were not able to keep their doors open because they didn't have a big enough budget. They didn't have enough money coming in. So that's how we grew. We were able to bring them in and made them departments. We fixed them, we turned them around, and then made them successful, and we're able to secure more grant funds and serve more people. So those are a couple things to keep in mind if you're thinking about opening a nonprofit. Okay. All right. Well, we are at the end of our hour. This was great. Thank you so much for all the great questions. The plan is to be back again in 2 weeks. I realize that I'm actually going to be traveling in Europe. So I'm going to try to see if maybe I can jump on, but I want to have a backup plan. Maybe I can lean on Rachel and Ann to help me out with the next Zoom. And I will jump on from wherever. I'm going to be in Athens, I think, at the time, so I can try and make it work. So anyway, I look forward to talking about what I had stated earlier, which is going to be identifying needs in your community. Okay, so that is the topic for the next session. If there aren't any more last minute quick questions, anybody?
Hey, Luz, could I ask a quick question? How could I get Ann's phone number? Because I have a group of OCs. We're going to be investing about 20 properties in Dallas. So definitely want to do something with them and develop a relationship with nonprofits, and also maybe with, with you, who's ever going to be investing in Dallas.
Absolutely. And do you want to pop your number in there?
Sure.
Thank you, Luz.
Done.
Thank you.
There you go. Excellent. Thank you, Derby. All right, everyone.
Thank
You so much.
Thanks,
Hope you can
guys.
join us in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.